Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me yet again. And I am excited to bring back Jim to talk about something I'm particularly interested in, and that is dimensions. So welcome, Jim. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Vida. Happy to be here.
Thank you. I am really interested in talking about the dimensions between the differences of 3 and 5D and this whole new 4D, what that is. But before we go there, I want to step all the way back to what in the world is a dimension. It's something that's inside where spiritual people talk about it a lot, but I'd love to get us all on the same page. What the heck is a dimension?
Yeah, it's a really great question here. Lots of people say we're going from the 3rd to the 5th and it's all going to be what? What does it mean? What's a dimension? So it's a great question. So let's just be really basic about this. So we're playing with 3 dimensions for this conversation, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th. You live in all of them simultaneously. So now we're going to cut them apart and we're going to talk about what are the rules and the structures and the constructs of each one of those dimensions. And so this 3rd dimension, most people say, well, it's everything. Well, yes and no. So first, a dimension is not a physical space. A dimension is an energetic space. Now, what happens is you as a creator being create concepts, thoughts, considerations into form. So just keep it really simple. You say, gee, I think I'll go out and eat. A moment ago, that wasn't a concept, but it became a concept. And then you say, I think I'd like to have this kind of food. I'd like to go to this kind of restaurant. And I think we could go to this restaurant. So you took it from an idea to a dinner at a restaurant, being really simple. So the world around you, the chair you're sitting in, the house, the tree outside is all form. It's density constructed, condensed into form. It's an idea that's constructed into density and then thought and becomes form. Okay. So the world is not the 3rd, 4th, 5th dimension. So because you're a creator being. That's what you came here to do. And there have been many creator beings before you. And this is the result of all the creation, is the physical experience. Now, as soon as I say that, I'm going to back out a little bit of some of what I said in a moment. So the 3rd dimension, remember 3rd, 4th, 5th. The 3rd dimension is an interesting construct, where is the space we've been playing. And without trying to decide why we're here and how come we're here and how do we get out of here, one of the considerations is the 3rd dimension has rules and structures. One of the primary rules and structure is linear time. And so if you ask 100 people on the street, what is time? They will tell you past, present, future, and then you die, basically. But what happens is, yes, that's true. That's one of 5 different configurations of present time. Time is an application. It's not a fixed concept. But in 3D, it's pretty fixed. And because you believe past, present, and future, then you die. Pretty much that's your result. And you get caught up in this structure, and a lot of people say, well, yeah, this is how it works. Then we maybe reincarnate, and we go through all those conversations. So linear time. Conditionality is part of the 3rd dimension, which simply means there is nothing unconditional in the 3rd dimension. Okay. So this concept of love as an unconditional experience really is not something that happens here. Does love happen here? Yes. Does healing happen? Does all the beauty happen? Yes. But it's not 3rd dimension. It's 4th and 5th dimension. So 3rd dimension is conditionality, time. It's also duality, and it's also separation. Okay. So those are the game board pieces that basically you come here and say, okay, I'm going to play by the rules. Now, one of the things that gets challenging is when you play linear time, you get very caught in the game of linear time, meaning the past is fixed. It doesn't change. Too bad for you. You did this and it's fixed. That is not true, but that's the belief. And so one of the other pieces about the linear time is you spend, in fact, very little time in present time because you're conditioned, here's that word, to all the things that happened in my past over there. Oh, I hope they don't happen to me in my future over here. Or what they told me over here was really good, so I'm going to have this future event, predetermined, I'm going to have it.
So would you say though that you're conditioned almost into the third dimension?
No, you step into the game of the third dimension, and conditions are part of the rules of the game. Okay? Condition. Unconditional simply means what happens when you go into the fourth dimension. This gets very simple. Oh, actually, let me stay in third. Also in the third, the duality, the right, the wrong, the good, the bad. You're not okay. I'm okay. Domination, imposition, control, judgment, all play into the ripple effect of the rules. But is separation. You're not okay. I'm better than you. And so in that space of it's always, third dimension is also always and never, very rigid. You're never going to be trustworthy. He's never going to succeed.
Can I ask you before you go too far, is that kind of this locked in response that we seem to have? Like, this is how it is. It just doesn't have a lot of room for more possibility of what is. It's like, well, this is the way it is.
Right.
Would that be okay?
Absolutely. Always and never. There's no room for anything else. Always and never. Now, when you go into the fourth dimension is a thought realm. It is not a physical realm. In the fourth dimension, there are no trees. There is no house. There is no chair. There is density, though. Thought has density. Okay? And so in this fourth dimension, there are no trees. There is no house. There is no chair. But there is density. Thoughts have density. Now, if I say to you, let's put thoughts in one in each hand. Happy, joy, laughing, I appreciate you. I'm angry, judgment, I'm jealous, I'm enraged. Which one feels better and which one feels heavier? And so thoughts have density.
Hey, can I ask you, can I be in the fourth dimension and in the third dimension? Because how does that play with form? Like, I'm sitting in a physical chair having thoughts. So am I in 4D or am I in 3D?
It's a thought realm. It is not a physical realm. So do you ever space out thinking about something? You ever watch people just space out? It's like they leave. And where do they go? They go into a thought and they're figuring it out, and their body is actually moving around. It's like your dream space is in the fourth dimensional space. And so, but there is no physical body or there's no tree. It's all thought. Okay. And so in that space, a couple of things happen. The rules of the game there, I can keep it really simple. The first rule is, or the first construct is present time. There is no past. There is no future. I am here right now. So like literally right now where we're communicating, you don't even have children. You're not married. You don't have a history at all, and you don't have a future in a manner of speaking because I'm right here. Okay, now keep this simple, right here. That's all there is. And now that right here is already just moved into the past. There was a past present time moment ago where you were in the present moment, but it's a past present time moment. But you never left here. You're right here.
Is that like when you described once where if you just close your eyes, like if you close your eyes, you're still there. You're just in a different, like, you're just not physical. Like the act of kind of closing your eyes. I mean, you're still there. You is there, but you're just kind of letting go and turning off all the extrasensory.
Yes, you are not your physical body. You have created a physical body to have an experience in. And when you close your eyes, you are not your physical body, but you have a vehicle that you have an experience in. Okay. So the fourth dimension, though, keeping it very simple for the moment, it's a thought realm, and it operates in present time. It operates with something in the fourth dimension that's not in the third dimension, and that is choice. In the third dimension, you do not have choice. What you do have is reaction. Oh my God, this isn't supposed to be happening. You are in present time and you're in reaction. Now, it makes no sense. See, just as I'm watching you think, it's trying to like, well, you make sense of this. You got to have choice because I have choice all the time. So I must have choice in third dimension. No.
I think this is great because it's kind of like when you run the calculator, you're plugging in the numbers. 1 + 1 = 2. So in third dimension, you're not even inputting 1 + 2. 1 + 1, there's just 2. There's no choice whatsoever. Right. You're just like, hey, 2, there it is. This is the way it is. Right. Off we go.
Yes. Okay. Absolute, always, never is wrong.
This is how it is.
There's no choice. Okay.
Got it.
So how do you deal with that? So you have choice. You have present time, meaning right now. You have choice right now. And you also have a very valuable word called paradox. What was true a moment ago is no longer true necessarily now. And what was false a moment ago may not be false now. Now, what happens is that becomes very freeing because the person who is never going to change, I'm watching them. And so I have one of two choices. Either they're never going to change and that's not true what I'm looking at. I don't believe that. They're never going to change. This is a joke. They're conning everybody. They're never going to change. Or they changed. And if I allow that person to change, I'll allow my engagement, my experience, my possibility, my opportunities, my education, my everything to begin to have another point of view to determine how I experience myself. Let's make it up. That person all of a sudden says, gee, I remember you and we used to have a lot of fun. And one time we talked about this and I have an answer. Wow. I've been looking for that for 30 years.
So could you say that the conclusions and the judgments all sit inside that third dimension? Because if you're in this fourth dimension where there's thought and possibility and it's kind of more open and I can change out the numbers to the equation, anything can happen, anything's possible. But in that third, it's like, here's my conclusion. This is already equals number 2.
Yeah. So there's no room for choice. There's no room for variability. Now, we're not talking about every minute of your day because, again, you're in third, fourth, and fifth dimension all the time. So you're bouncing back and forth on these. But when on a certain particular subject, a person may be really rigid, but they may be a wonderful person 99% of the rest of the time. And so you just have to recognize what we're talking about is what happens in each one of these boxes, third, fourth, fifth. We're really not interested in changing the rules here, but understanding what happens. Because if you understand, I'm in a place where I'm just really never going to forgive you, I'm in third dimension. And when you start playing in this fifth dimensional space, which we'll define with just simply one word, well-being. And in the fifth dimension, there is no fear. There is no trust. There is no safety because there's nothing unsafe, nothing to distrust, and nothing to fear. And so think about in the fifth dimension, one of your greatest events, let's call it the great dinner party, and you had your best friends over and everybody came and people you haven't seen for a long time, and you just sit and laugh and eat good food and make fun of one another and tell jokes. And in that fifth dimensional reality, nothing's wrong. And so keeping it very simple. So those constructs, once you understand separation, fear, conditionality, control, domination, linear time, locking you into this happened. I can never change the past. I'm stuck in the past. This is the truth. Oh, there's no room to allow for another truth. And as we talk about a lot in Mastering Alchemy, the past is not fixed. The past is very, very easily changed when you understand what the past is made up of.
So, and you're saying that because the fourth dimension, you have choice. So in the third dimension, that statement that you just said is completely untrue. But in the fourth dimension, that statement becomes true because now you have all these possibilities that have opened up. So you can kind of back out of it. So when we talk about how creation works, it first happens the thought, right? I'd like to do this. And then you kind of get, oh, that sounds really fun. Well, what if I did this? And then it kind of is continued and collapses and becomes denser and denser and denser. So is the third dimension, it's kind of sounding like it's the result of, it's like these locked in kind of creations that have no movement. And you can bring that back into fourth dimension and start unlocking and moving things and having more choice. And then how would you relate the fifth dimension into kind of this conversation? Is it all kind of just really loose and fluid? And I want to pull this over here and a chocolate cake at my party. And then maybe I'll have balloons I'm pulling from over here. Like, how are you working there?
Well, in a manner of speaking, yes. What do you want? And see, when you get out of your way and you begin to deal with that question, what do I want? And I realize that let's just answer the question for everybody. What do I want? Oh, they're going to say, well, I want this and I want that. But there's really one answer to you as a spirit ability. I want excitement. I want excitement. I want joy. I want to laugh a lot. And so I want excitement and I want to understand. I want to expand. I want to grow more, but I want excitement. So the second piece is follow your excitement and think about when you were really excited about something, you kept asking more questions and more possibilities. And in that space, there was no argument. It was like, oh no, I don't need that piece. You just move things around on the table. When there's no fear in this space and you begin to recognize, and what's really fun about being in that fifth dimensional space, you start opening up access to how things really work as a spiritual being. So you're using all the same tools in the third dimension. You just simply don't understand the rules of the tools, or you don't understand the means in which to move things around. And so, and there's another piece we should say, the third dimension, the earth, the chair you're sitting on, well, it exists in both the third and the fifth dimension simultaneously. It's the same chair. It's the same tree. It's the same house. That's form. But in the fifth dimension, you begin to appreciate it and you begin to enjoy. Third dimension, you don't recognize the chair you're sitting in because you're so angry about the events around you that you don't recognize a lot of the form that you're playing in because it's just simply stuff in the way.
That's really, really interesting. So you're kind of more locked into your thought, locked into your emotions, locked into this heavier construction versus in 5D sitting in the chair, everything's light. I can move things around. If maybe I don't like this chair and I want to switch and I want it to be a couch, no problem. It happens just with ease. And so that's kind of the difference between is one has a lot more ease and fluidity and the other one's just like, well, this is how it is. And that's all there is.
Sure. And also, if you think about in the third dimension, in real terms, mom, dad, teacher, minister, don't give you permission. You don't have my permission. You can't use the car. You can't go out. You have to do this. This is how it all works. And so the mom, dad, teacher, minister tell you, not beating any of them up, this is how it works. So what happens is you begin to have a built-in belief system perfectly because you came into the game to play the game. But you also now, particularly, you came into the game to get out of the game. And by you getting out of the game, you take a lot of people with you out of the game. You just get off the third dimensional game board and you move to the place where your thoughts have value, where you can think things, where you can express things, where you can get into joy. Wow, I just fell into the fifth dimension. See, in the fifth dimension, words like grace and respect and dignity exist. Third dimension, those are just utterances of sound that have no attachment to them.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, can we dive just for a little bit more, if I can hang on to you a minute longer, into the fourth dimension? Like, this is a wild place to think about, where your thoughts, like, I live in my thoughts all day. Like, that's what's constantly, playing with, what's the next thing? How am I moving through my day? So, can you talk a little bit about this and open up this thought realm and an understanding of how does that relate to me even being in a physical body in the physical world, but yet I'm playing inside this thing called a fourth dimension?
So in this fourth dimensional space, you have room to actually think and pause. You're in present time. You're not in any hurry to get out of present time. You're always in present time. And so you sit and think. And if you think about it, you don't think about things when you don't sit back and say, gee, I wonder what I should do this weekend. When you are in the middle of a work project, or you're dealing with your kids, or you basically don't have enough money, or there's a leak in the roof, you don't have a lot of fourth dimensional time. You're consumed by everything that goes on in that third dimensional space. But when you begin to recognize this fifth dimensional space, for example, you start to have this sense in this fifth dimensional space is an interesting space because it's this internal guidance system in the heart. It knows the difference between joy and anger. It knows it basically, when you say, how does this feel? Anger doesn't feel good. So anger has edges and scrapey, and it's just not nice to my body. I don't feel good when I'm in anger, fill in the next word. But when I'm over here in laughter and in joy, I relax, I begin to move coherently, and I begin to be able to allow myself to think about how I would like to enjoy myself. Now that's difficult for people to hear in some ways, because I'm so caught up in my game, I don't ever get that moment to think how I would really like to enjoy myself.
Okay, wait, I need to ask you this though, because so when I'm in my day, or when someone's in their day and they're very focused on, here's what I have to do today, and they're thinking about what they have to do today, they're not in the fourth dimension?
Oh no, their thought process is very much a thought process. Mm-hmm. And that thought process is the rational mind and the heart. Let's give them both of them play two different ways, but sometimes all together. You begin to think in such a way that you're paying attention to your work project in a space where you're building your work project. So that's all thinking. You're in a space where you have fluidness. You all of a sudden start realizing, oh, this isn't working. Fourth dimension. Remember I said you're in them all the time. It's not in its split seconds between 3 and 4. It's all of a sudden you go, well, this really isn't working. I'm really angry about this. You just fell out of whatever you were in a moment ago. So you never get kicked out of the fifth dimension. You choose to step out of it in the simplest way. So that fourth dimensional space is really a lot to talk about, because you are a creator being, and creator beings think creation into existence. Fundamental, you think creation into existence. And so if you are distracted by all of the noise about you're caught up in the emotions of anger or rage or all those kind of things, and you're locked into my past is fixed and I've really been a screw up all my life, I have no room to expect that I could be brilliant, successful, attractive, wonderful, delightful person. Because see, you don't know my history. But what if we just simply erase your history? Would you be a different person? And the answer at the beginning is no.
So can I pull into this fourth layer of thought? I'm hearing you kind of talking about a range of thought. So there's the heavy layer in this fourth dimension where my thoughts are very caught up in themselves and I'm not having that heart space where I'm getting kind of more open and more options available to me. And then on the high spectrum of this fourth space, on the that's where my heart is playing more, or my higher self, where I'm like, oh, this would be nice. And I'm having more kind of an openness to the way that I'm thinking. Is that what you're kind of describing here?
But what you put, let's just bring the law of attraction into this. What you place your attention upon, the universe says, I, the universe who adores you, will provide you. Unconditionally, no questions asked. What you ask for, I will bring to you. You're the creator being. Well, right there, people go, well, I've asked and I haven't gotten anything. Okay. See, the universe doesn't understand English, French, and Spanish very well. What the universe understands is vibration. And if you've been walking around all your life, I'm not okay, I'm really angry, it's their fault, they're blaming me, what happens is your vibrational construct is in those thoughts. And then a lot of times, because I don't like these thoughts, I put them back here in the backpack and I say, go away. And I will never go over there where my problems exist. So I'm good. All you did was just basically make those thoughts and fears and doubts unconscious, but they're still sitting in the backpack. So the universe keeps feeding you exactly what you're holding your attention upon. You can wake up in the morning and going, oh, it's going to be a great day, but I got to go to work and it really sucks. Which one do you think you're going to spend your day in? So when you start to get into the place where the fifth dimension and the operation mechanisms of the fifth dimension, your ability to eliminate a great amount of your past, a great amount of the I'm a screw up, the great amount of I did something wrong. And you basically are able to simply look at it and say, is there any value to continuing to carry this around? Now, if you're thinking that from a fourth dimensional or third dimensional space, the answer is not going to be resolved because you're in the picture trying to fix the picture. It doesn't work that way. But once you start to get a little bit of separation and you realize, and again, with a lot of the tools in level 1 and level 2, you start to clear out these patterns and you also clear out the memory structure because an awful lot of your memory structure, 1 is false, 2 is not even your creation, and 3, it was just something maybe you bumped into and then took responsibility for. And you start to recognize this has no value to me at my age. And there's a process of how to simply clean out your past comfortably, instantaneously, if you simply recognize, and it's not a complicated process. The biggest piece of it is asking yourself in neutral, does this emotion serve me? And when you allow yourself to get very congruent and recognize, yes, the event happened. I'm not going to argue the event. I'm just going to simply look at this and ask the question, do I need to carry this around? And if you become congruent with the answer, this has no value to me, that whole process is gone. I mean, like gone. It's not there to revisit again. Yeah, the fourth dimension is everything. See, unless you can begin to understand how you create, you just keep repeating patterns that you have created. Everything that happens to you, you have created. And it's created into a great extent in third dimension by being sloppy and throwing energy at this people. And I don't like them and we should destroy that. That's just noise, but it's creation. And so you wind up, throwing up all over yourself. And then the next rest of the lifetime, you're wearing it. It's as simple as I can say it. And so then you wonder, well, how come life isn't working for me? Because you've created it. Now, the interesting part is to that physical form question we started with is you are the creator of the physical form. You also have you have the ability and the responsibility to uncreate it. See, the archangelics say all the time, we know all the probabilities. We know all of your possibilities, but we don't have the body, and the body, form is created from form. And you are in physical form, thinking the thoughts that create form. Now, remember I said a minute ago that your thoughts have density. So if my thought is, let's go and create a war and destroy those people, and I get enough people that start to get in agreement with my thought, it begins to take on flow, and it begins to take on form, and it begins to take on attitude, and it begins to take on concept and idea, and more people begin to be magnetically drawn to it. Now, it could be a fifth dimensional creation of well-being, or it could be a third dimensional creation of destruction. And so, soon as you begin to start to think in well-being, joy, respect, dignity, kindness, uplifting, those are all fourth and fifth dimensional thoughts. In the fourth dimension, joy and beauty is really fluid, it's coherent, it doesn't have edges. But anger, rage, judgment, jealousy, how do they feel in your body is the question. And they have edges. Emotions have edges. Not a full truth, but a good ballpark reference point. Whereas respect and dignity and kindness and laughter, coherent, fluid. When you start to try to create and you begin to move fluidness into fluidness, things happen. But when you try to create with rigid blocks and squares and concrete boxes, you don't have the same fluidness of the creation's outcome.
So as we step into the fourth dimension, into that heart-centered space, we can readjust, open things up, recreate, and basically undo the third dimension. So the third dimension is a result of our sloppy creation, as you kind of put it together. And then would you say the fifth dimension is a result of our well-done creation?
No, I would say it that when you hold your attention in third dimensional vibrational patterns, you are then playing on the third dimensional game board. And all the same rules in terms of the same tools of how do you create applies to the third dimension as well as it does the fifth dimension. The tools are identical. See, you have all these skill sets. When we start talking in the second level 2, you start playing with the fourth, fifth, sixth rays of creation. Those are how do you assemble and how do you put things together? But it also has the ability to say, well, I don't want that anymore, so I'd like to take that apart. No problem. Comes apart that easy. Unless you are stuck in always and never in the third dimension and the concept that the past is fixed and I can't change anything that I've created. Now you're really stuck in your creations. And that's been the third dimensional game all along. Now as this fifth dimensional space begins to open up, people are waking up and you're beginning to have other choices. And then things like Mastering Alchemy comes along that says, here, use this fourth ray of construction to basically put things together and also take them apart. Now I'm not so nervous about my creation. I am actually willing to experiment and give myself room to make a mistake in my assembly. It's like, oops, that didn't work. Take it back apart. You didn't fail. Just, the red block goes in before the blue block. And you go on your way. That's fifth dimension, fourth, fifth dimension. You have permission and opportunity and choices. And you don't fail, but you're learning how to put the puzzle together and get the desired result of love that you wish to experience.
Excellent. And I think that kind of sums up what Mastering Alchemy is. Would you mind saying that again for us, the definition of Mastering Alchemy?
So real simple, Mastering Alchemy is altering the vibration of thought, choosing anger, rage, resentment, happy, joy, fall on your butt, laughing, enjoying yourself. Which feels better? So altering how you vibrate thought, changing the harmonics of matter. This one takes a little bit more discussion, but basically, how do I change what has been into what will be? And that's both physically and mentally as well as spiritually. The same rules apply, spiritual, mental, physical. And then the last part is the intention. I'm creating the desired results I want in the love that I want to experience. And then you laugh.
Excellent. And I think that's a good laugh to leave it on, and a big smile, because, oh, isn't that a big invitation? Who wants to play?
Yeah, and everybody's waking up absolutely looking for this, whether it's in the box called Mastering Alchemy. Everybody is looking for, how do I find joy, ease, and beauty, and walk around with a smile? And everybody will succeed. There's no failure in this game. You are not destined to be a third-dimensional person all your life. There are a lot of people right now that are arguing for those limitations. They're digging in their heels. They want their security and what they know is their truth. And it's going to be hard to continue to play that game, because as this light comes into the game, it's loosening up all of those limitations. And the more you grab a hold of them, the more it's going to be difficult, because they're not going to work. And there's going to be a point where you're going to simply step back and say, I can let it go. And all of a sudden you're going to look to the right and there's a big party saying, come play. But we each have to learn that and allow that to occur as we go along.
Excellent. The journey of mastery.
It is.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jim. This has been a big eye-opener on how this works and the importance of creation. Couldn't be more important. Thank you.